you to do a sermon on what we've been talking about and get off the mark for a little bit. So I said, okay, well, I'll do something different. So I'm doing something today instead of continuing with Mark. I had some inspirational stuff that come to me. And it was kind of funny that when she first mentioned it to me, I kind of resented it a little bit because I would have to do it in Mark. I want to go all the way through it. But after I made the agreement, okay, I'll do it. Let's see what happens. I really, inspiration started coming to me. And so I'm writing on some things that come to me this week, and that's what we'll be talking about. And there were 2 points or 2 pieces of inspiration, and I have decided I can combine those because they really go together. So I'll be talking on 2 points today and putting them together and making one. And the first one is Philippians 4:13. And everybody pretty much familiar with that. When Rabbi Paul says, I can do all things through Christ, through Yeshua, who strengthens me. And the second thing is that what John said, Apostle John said, that we should love God as he has loved us. So those 2 things go together pretty much. And John 2, 1 John, I should say, 1 John 2, 3-6 says, and hereby we do not that we know him if we keep his commandments. We don't know God unless we keep his commandments. If we don't keep his commandments, we won't know God. We won't know what he's about. And he that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whosoever keepeth his word in him, verily the love of God perfected, hereby knows that we are in him. And he that saith he abideth in him, ought himself to walk even as he walked. The people who believe in God have got to understand something. They've got to understand that believing in God is not an idea. It's not something that we can just talk about, something that we can imagine, even something that we can know. It has to be something that we do. It has to be who we are, what we are. It has to be how people actually view us. Not by what we say, not by the scriptures that we quote, not by the sermons that we preach, not by the songs that we sing or the dances that we do, but how we live our everyday life. When they see you, it's what you do. Believing is action. Right. It's not talking. It's not talking to talk, it's walking to walk, it's doing to do. Yes. And then we come along with Rabbi Shaul, and he says, I can do all things through Yeshua who strengthens me. Think about that for a second. I can do all things through Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, the Messiah, who strengthens me. I cannot. I cannot. You cannot either. No, you can't. Let me tell you what. I cannot do a lot of things. One thing I cannot do is there's a tower in Beach Island. There's 5 TV towers out there that are 1,500 feet high. There is a step every foot, every each foot. There's 1,500 steps. I cannot climb that 1,500-foot tower. I can see myself getting started up about 50 of them steps and saying, fat boy, you can't go no more. And then I can say myself, Yeshua, Jesus, help me to the top. And I can just see, poof, I'm on the top changing out the light bulb. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. Let me tell you something. I know something else. I cannot, through the strength of Messiah Yeshua, play Major League Baseball. I can see myself sitting up there and saying, when you see the ball go by, because my eyes are so slow. There's some things I cannot do through Christ who strengthens me. And I know for a fact I cannot win the $300 million lottery because I done bought 3 or 4 tickets and I didn't win it. So that's not going to happen. You see, Yeshua, when Paul was talking about that, he was talking about himself, and what he was he was in the will of God. It is not the will of God that I climb 1,500 foot. It's kind of like the fellow who went to the snake handlers meeting, and the guy says, you want to handle the snake? He said, Lord, don't tell me. He said, I'm going to run the door. He said, wait, I'm going to make a door. I'm going to get out of here. It's not the will of God that I handle no snake. Don't hand me one. There's some things that's not in the will of God, and there's some things that the strength is not going to give me to do, because if I'm not in God's will, it's not going to happen. I'll mess it up. Paul said that I am in the will of God. He was talking about himself. He was talking about his relationship with you and God. He was referring to God's plan for him in his ministry. And you in your life, you have to decide what is your life, what is your ministry. And let me tell you something. Then you can do things like that, but you can't do everything you want to do because you know you're sure. You can't do it. You have to take it in the form that it was given to you, in the context to what he's talking about. Now, so what you have to do is try to make this apply to you. This is normal. We take a Bible verse, we look at it, and say, how does it affect me? Okay? Well, the first thing you have to do is determine what God, or what you believe God's got in store for you. And then you got to figure out what his will is going to be and what his strength is going to be for you to do this. Sometimes we don't even know that. There are people who are doing ministries who never thought they'd ever be doing ministry. There's people who are not in ministry who thought they would be. It goes on. You have to determine what God wants me to do. You also have to check on your sins and your failures. And you have to look in your life and say, what has gone wrong? And how did it get there? And what part did I do? And what part did I let God do? And what decision did I make that I wanted? And when did I get what I wanted and we left God out of our decisions? Now, it has to be a way for it to come about. And the list, of course, goes on what we can't do. Every one of y'all can sit down and write list after list and thing after thing that you cannot do. Because God really don't care whether you do them or not. I don't think God wants me to climb that tower. And I hope he don't try to send me up there. A long way, 1,500 foot straight up there, a long ways, and it's swaying about 10 or 20 foot. It's not for me. So, what you have to understand is this. You have to come to God, Yeshua, as a baby. You have to, no matter what your age is, when you come in to know God, you got to start at scratch. And then you've got to start reading and studying and determining, deciphering, and whatever you have to do, God's Word. And you have to find out what he wants you to do. You have to find out which direction and what, and maybe you're supposed to just be a bench warmer. Don't get me wrong. Everybody don't have to be preachers and teachers and so on. It can't happen. But you have to determine what God has wants you to do. He wants to do that. And when you do that, and you start studying his Word, and you start praying, and you start talking, start learning the Bible, and you start learning the Bible stories and the lessons they teach, what happens is you become to grow in strength. Because as one trial or one tribulation comes up, so you have to grow in strength through trials and tribulation and rely on his power and in his spirit to overcome the trials and the temptation. And when you do that, you grow in the Lord. You will not grow in the Lord if you don't have to make trials and tribulations a part of your life. Or if they're not a part of your life, and you don't learn to overcome them. If you don't have strife, you're doing something wrong. If you don't have problems in your life, you got something wrong. If something is not bothering you, you're doing something wrong, because Satan said if you claim to be a child of God, he's going to tempt you and he's going to try to make your life miserable. He's going to get in your way and he's going to be a stumbling block. So how do you conquer that? Through the power of the Holy Spirit, through God, and that's what's going to strengthen you when you say, boy, I had this problem, I couldn't figure it out, and it went away. I needed a job, and it gives you a job. And the problem with that is, it's a good temptation to go through that. I told this story the other day. Said a young man, young family, down and out, couldn't get by, struggling. He said, God, I got to have a better job. I got a wife and kids to take care of, and this job I got, I'm not making. And all of a sudden, he gets a job offer, making good money. The boss is happy with him, promotes him. He's making more money. He buys a nice house. He buys a nice car. He buys a nice boat. There's a problem with the boat. It would only run on the Sabbath day. It won't run the rest of the week. So after he had been blessed and blessed and blessed, and he buys this boat, instead of going to worship God where he's supposed to, he ends up at the lake riding in the boat. And if things go wrong, and he said, God, what's going wrong? He said, you bought the wrong boat. That only runs on Saturday, on the Sabbath. You need to find one that run on Monday and Tuesday sometime. So we ask God, and that's a part of our life. We have to recognize where our blessings come from. We have to recognize when you ask for something, and I've been praying this week and prayed, y'all understand the prayer I've done this week, and when my prayers were answered, it took me 15 minutes to realize when my prayer had been answered, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not even thank God. It was just a shoo-in. And I said, oh God, thank you for answering my prayer. If we do not build that strength and that relationship, and when you ask for something and when you get it, if you can't take the time to thank God for it, then all of a sudden, well, it was just luck, or an accident, or crap happens, or boy, I'm glad it went my way. Sometimes when you say a prayer, you had better say a prayer of thanksgiving after you get what you want. Sometimes when you say a prayer, you don't get what you want, and 5 years later, 2 years later, you realize, oh, I'm glad I didn't get that. I will tell you a true story. When I was working down at Plant Urquhart down there, and they put in these 3 big units, and I was up for a supervisor's job. And I wanted that job real good. I mean, supervisors get this, they got a lot of benefits compared to peons. I didn't get it. The guy that got it, I have no idea how he got it. He prayed it was the wrong guy that got it. I found out later, but I'm glad I didn't get it. And just probably about a month after I found out that I didn't get that job that I thought I willingly reserved, and I asked God to help me get the job because it's better for my retirement, you know, yada yada. Greed, ego, money, you know, prestige, all that goes in that. And the deal was that when I was looking at the job, they had elevators that would go to every floor. And there I was with bad knees and artificial knees and couldn't hardly walk. And if I'd have got the job, I couldn't have done the job, and I'd have been out the door. So it dawned on me that when they come and announce today, but then I had the money to put the elevators in. I said, thank you, God, I didn't get that job. See, somewhere in your life, you have to start taking charge of your life, and sometimes you have to recognize what you ask for and what you don't ask for and realize where it comes from and say, well, what part did you play? And then you realize that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me has to be because of the way you're living your life. And that your power and your strength comes to overcome trials and temptations in your life. It has to come from God. And when we obey Him and live His ways, we are strengthened. So your strength has to be with your relationship with God, not on an idea of a concept of what God is. You have to be part of your own strength. You have to rely on God. You have to recognize what's going on in your life and where it's coming. So Colonel and I were talking earlier about end times is here, and people have to be ready for end times. We have to realize what's going to happen. We have to know that the book tells us what's going to happen. We have to rely on the book to tell us what's going to happen. And that's the only way we're going to know what's going to happen. And to do that, we got to know what God expects from us. And this whole thing doesn't rule out miracles. There are miracles in everybody's lives every day that we don't know about. So it's not the work or the living the life by itself. It has to be recognizing that God's had a plan and God does things and God helps us when we don't even know He's helping us. We have to realize that God does miracles in our lives too. But we're not totally in control. God is in control of our life. God is in control of what He's going to do. Our job is to worship God and find strength through Him by doing what He would have us do, by living the life God would have us to do. That's where your strength comes from, putting the effort into doing what God would have you to do. And when you're tempted, even if you fail, you can teshuva. I was talking to a little girl this week, talking to 25 years old. Now they all 16. I'm 70, she's 16. And she don't know what she's going to do with her life. And I said to her, matter of fact, beautiful girl, tattooed up like a zebra. I said, oh my God, girl, how you going to get a decent job somewhere? I said, you know, whatever. What are you doing? And I ain't getting all the details. And finally I said, what you need to do is start going back to church. And she mentioned the word repent. I said, I don't want you to repent. She said, why? I said, no, I want you to teshuvah. And she said, what is teshuvah? What is that? I said, Hebrew. And she said, well, what does that mean? I said, it means not just say I'm sorry. Return back to the teachings that you know. Return to the Torah. Return to living a godly life. And when you do that, you can gather your strength. Part of this sermon come out of that talking with her for about 45 minutes. That you can gather your strength to do what God would have you. You can turn your life around. You can get yourself a better job. You'll have a different attitude. You'll have a different way of looking at life and looking at people. And you want to improve yourself. But you have to turn from the way you're going and go back and do what the Bible tells you to do and live the way God says live. And then your strength will come. When Yeshua said, I can do all things through Yeshua, he's also saying, I can do the things with God and his power if I am worthy, if I am putting the effort, if I am trying, and if this is what he wants me to do, and if it's in his will. You're not going to get to do if it's not what God wants you to do. Everybody here was born for a purpose. I don't know what it was. But it is going to be what God wants you to do. There's no accident. There's no bad people. There's people that here you have a job to do. And you're going to do that job. And if you choose not to do it, you'll raise somebody up in your place. The job's going to get done. Okay? What it does, though, it gives us, well, the idea is that because I say that I am a believer and I am saved, does not give me the ability to walk on water. It doesn't. But because we're saved doesn't give us the ability to do things that we can't do. What it does, it gives us a starting point to grow, and from the idea that we will follow him, and then great things can happen in the future. Great things can happen. And these thoughts weren't had because I heard, well, these thoughts were had because I heard a man that I know for a fact was not even trying to live a godly life. He was not trying to live a godly life, but he was trying to blow smoke about how all of a sudden, instantaneously, he could just change. He could go from being a demon and a devil to an angel just because of the strength of Christ in him. It doesn't work that. It has to be a lifetime. It's got to be a way. It don't matter if you start at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. Somewhere you got to start and live that life and grow that strength by living with God, by doing what God wants you to do and realizing where it comes from. You can't be a pagan one minute and an angel the next. You got to come as a babe and grow and learn and study. That's what you have to understand. I can't instantly stop doing all bad things to become an angel. And actually it's like taking the name of God in vain when you try to do that. God is my collateral. I can do anything I want to now because God is my collateral. It don't work that way. You know, it's kind of like the same idea as let me be your automobile mechanic and I will fix your car in a godly way and not overcharge you just because I'm a believer in God. It doesn't work that way, people. You don't go from a crook to an angel just because you become a Christian. You get saved. But a life starts all over. A way of living starts. And it starts by reading and studying and worshiping and being around people. You lose your old friends. You throw them away because they're going to drag you back in the mud hole. And you start a new life all over. You have to understand that to take the name of the Lord thy God in vain is to mean that God is my guarantee. And everything I do is going to be godly. It's not that way, people. It takes time. And that's where your strength, and you can do all things through God. But you're going to know his will and what he wants you to do. And when you do that, then you do what's supposed to be done. And we can sum that up by saying that our strength, which God provides, comes from obeying his commandments and living a life pleasing to him. And then we will have strength to do the things he wants us to do. And looking at John 1, 5, 14 through 16, it says, and this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he heareth us. And if we know that he hears us, whatsoever we ask, knowing that we have the petition that we desired of him. John 1 John, 2, 3 through 6 says, and hereby we do know that we know him if we keep his commandments. In other words, if we know God, only if we keep his commandments. If we're not living God, if we're not living the commandments, we're not obeying him and living, we don't know him. We're not a part of him. To be him, to be a part of God, we have to live the part of God. Okay? And he said he abided in him himself also to walk, even as he walked. God is our strength. God provides. It comes from obeying the commandment and living a life pleasing to him, and then we'd have the strength to do all things. I find it interesting, this people, how the word love, and we'll tie these two together, how the word love is misused. Do you understand that verse I just read you is totally misused? The one I read you about, I can do all things through Christ. You can't do all things. It's misused. When you develop a life, you can do it. It doesn't happen instantly like that. And the word love is misused. You understand how many times? Do you even understand when you tell somebody what you love them, what it means? You ever thought about that? You ever sit there and say, Rabbi, I love you? You realize what it means? If I come up and tell you I love you, you know what that means? Have you ever thought about that? Was it an idea, a concept that's a pretty sweet word? You ever really sit down and think of what it means to say I love somebody? We hear people use that love word, and not only do they misuse it, but they have no idea as the proper meaning or how powerful that word is. Love is not what you get, but it's what you give. So when I say that I love you, I want to give you something. I want to take care of you. The question has to be, and I know the Greek, okay? There are 5 kinds of love, but I'm talking about the godly love that we're talking about in this Bible. There's 5 different kinds of love. Love your dog, your cat, chicken, go fishing. Some people love chocolate. But if you love chocolate, you eat chocolate, don't you? Yes. It's just that kind of simple, okay? You're part of the program. So when you tell someone you love them, what are you actually saying? What message should you, or should they be hearing from you, and what should you expect from them? What message are you really sending that person? Shul in his letter says that men should love their wives as Yeshua loved the synagogue, and the synagogue is community in the world. That's one of the messages. Men love, husbands love your wives. What does that mean? What does that really mean? What should she be hearing? Should be hearing. Let me give you an example. Well, when I tell Connie, I said, Connie, I love you. What should she form in her mind? What else should she hear me saying, I want to give to you. I give a poison oath. I want to help you. I want to do for you. I want to encourage you. I want to make you happy. I want to make you more than you thought you could ever be. I want to uplift you. I want to encourage you. I want to praise you. I want to compliment you. I want to provide for you in your need. I want to lift up your life. I want to help you grow in goodness. I want you to grow and love yourself. And I want you to fly as high as you can fly and be all that you can be. And I will be there to give you everything I can to make that happen. So when one Christian looks at another Christian, the person, whether it's male or female, vice versa, and say, I love you, brother, I love you, sister, you're saying the same thing. I want to help you be all you can be, and I want to uplift you. Right. And I'm there to give you what I can give you to help you. And then there's all things, from strength comes all things from Yeshua. That's the kind of stuff he's talking about, people. It's not talking about sitting over here saying, I want to condemn you. You're ugly, you're fat, I want to control you. Love is about freedom. Love is about throwing the little birds out of the nest and let them fly. Love is about forgiveness. Love is not about saying, I want to control you. It's not saying, I want to hold you back. I want to make your life miserable. I want to restrict you. Love is not about saying you're ugly and unwanted and unneeded. Love is about helping to uplift. Right. When you tie those two together, we have to have some form of reasonable conclusion. To come to a reasonable conclusion about love, we must read and learn about what God did for us and what has God done for you. What has God, when you look in the mirror and you look at your life and say, what has God done for me? Love God. Love yourself. What's God done for you? And then love others the same way. He died on the cross, the execution stake that you can live. You're the husband and wife. A husband should be willing to die for his wife and die for his family. To work his fingers to the bone. And that wife should do the same thing for the husband. Anything she can to help him. I want you to be strong. I want to help you. Hey, but I can remember my mother getting up and fixing my daddy's lunches. And what do you want? And how do you want it? And packing it. And fixing everything he wanted for him to go off to work. And having supper ready for him to come home because that's what she wanted. That's what he needed. to encourage him. I can remember my father didn't have a lot of education. My mother used to help teach my daddy his reading and his math and stuff and all that because she wanted him to be all he could be, and she would encourage him and she would help him. My daddy couldn't save a dime if he had to. He just would, he had a dollar, he gonna spend it. He won't, on the farm, you know how it is, you got to have nuts, bolts, new wrenches, whatever. And I see my daddy coming in and said, well, I need a new tractor. Mom said, here, here's the money. My mother was a saver. She was Jewish. She'd save her, buddy. She'd say she'd count little pennies in the road. She'd get 5 pennies and carry to the bank and get a nickel for them. Said like that. I mean, I'm serious. I'm literally, I've seen her do that. Get her to change and go down there and bigger, kind of a dollar bill. And she hit them, y'all, this is funny. She hit them in the underwear drawer in the socks. That's where she get her money. Hey, I'm serious. Nobody would go in mama's drawers and stuff. You don't have a dresser drawer. But she kept them in a sock in the underwear drawer. No, we wasn't going to go in there. And I remember Daddy wanted a tractor one time. It was a 601 Ford. And he had seen it in the market bulletin, and he went and looked at it, and he was pacing the floor. He's figuring out. He hated to talk to my mom about money. And he would pace it. She said, what's wrong, Jonathan? And she called him Jonathan. The first name was Howard, but she called him Jonathan. Jonathan, what's wrong? He said, well, Gladys says, I'm looking at this tractor. And well, how much is it? Well, it's $900. It's $900. And he ain't have $900 in his pocket. I mean, he worked for a living like he worked for the railroad, you know. And she said, well, let's go look at it. He said, well, I ain't got $900, but I sure would like to have that tractor, you know. It was going, I don't know, about 5 or 10 more horsepower than what he had that 8M. And she said, well, let's go look at it. And let me tell you something, folks. Sitting on top of my mantle, or my bookshelf, is a picture of my mother and Daddy in the dress that she wore that day, and with her pocketbook. This was no string pocketbook, it was all knitted together. Never forget that day, because I was in the yard and I heard it. She said, well, let's go. He said, ain't got money. He said, well, let's go look at it. She said, I'll go with you to look at it. And so they go look at it and come on back home, and Mom said, well, it's a nice tractor, it's in good shape. And Mama was a farm girl too. Now, she was raised on the farm now. She chopped cotton the whole 9 yards, so she knew she could drive the tractor. Run over me one time with the tractor, but that's okay. That's another story.
So that's what's wrong.
Really, she did. She run over me completely with the back wheel of the tractor.
That's what's wrong with you.
That's what it is. It must have a brain up here. But anyway, so finally Daddy's still pacing, and she said, well, Johnson, what do you think? He said, well, Gladys, man, I like that tractor. She said, well, let's go get it. He said, I ain't got no money. She said, I got the money. Where'd you get the money from? She said, I saved my money. I saved my money. And she went there, and I was with her. She went in, opened the underwear drawer, and pulled out a sock there. She come out, counted out $900, and put it down in the pocketbook. And down the road we went to the trailer. Then he come back, boy, he's happy as he can be. But see, that's what love's about, people. That's what love's about. My mother, on a daily basis, would save her change and her money and stuff and put it back for things like that. And it wasn't for herself. It was for her husband and for her children. Love gives. Love helps. Love wants to do. And that's when you get your strength from, it, when you loving God and you loving other people. And then with that love, you can do all things through Christ and strengthen you because of His love and your love for Him. And if you love God, you're going to do what He wants you to do.
Yes.
Look what He's done for you. You've got to think. You're breathing. You have a hard time? Yeah. But look how good you're going to feel when you get over it. It's like being sick. You don't know what is good, feel good to be well if you ain't been sick. That's compared to something. When you just sit there and throw it up and hot fevers and sweat and all that kind of stuff, boy, when you can get outside and, whoo, it feels good, get out in the sunshine and smell that good fresh air outside. And you can compare it to being sick. You can't compare being happy until you've been miserable. That's what it's about, people love. So, then we can come to do things that through Christ who strengthens us, and that strength comes from God, and we can learn by giving Him love. Beloved, God so loved the world that we ought to love one another. What is the secret to salvation? Accepting Yeshua, asking Him to be your sacrifice, and then loving other people. And if you don't have the capacity to love, you ain't got a snowball chance in hell of getting to heaven. I'm going to tell you that right now. And you can profess and confess and do everything you want to about Yeshua Jesus, but if you don't live the life, you're not there. If you're not obeying the commandments, if you're not living the life, only thing you know about it. And if you love chocolate, if you ain't eating it, you really don't love chocolate. It's just that simple. The secret is the loving God and loving other people and doing for other people and uplifting for others. Turn them loose. Help them. And you know what God does to us people? He gives us the freedom to even sin. He gives us that freedom. He said, go fly. Go bump your toe. Go bump your head. But return to me when you see how bad it is, and I'll love you and forgive you for it. He don't hold you down and make you do nothing. When was the last time God held you down and wouldn't let you go do what you want to do? Never. He said, you got a mind. I'll give you the Holy Spirit. It's in you. It'll help you. It'll comfort you. It'll remind you. But you're going to do something, you're going to pay the price. How many of you made a bad decision in your life and paid for it for years? All right, now how many of you, whenever you finally come to your senses and got out and said, whoopee, it feels good to be free. It feels good to be past that. Because you can come back and remember what it was like before. But God gives you that freedom to make that choice. That's love. And the hardest thing that parents have to do with their children is what? Let them go. Knowing they're going to bump this in the head. But you still have to let them go. You let them go out of love. You hold them back out of control. Love is not control. Love is freedom. Then we will have the strength to do His will. I find these words and ideas are so abstract to so many people today. They have been taught, so many people in the church have been taught right out of the bat that you can do anything instantly. Instant gratification. There's no instant gratification in God except for the fact that you know when you accept Him and He forgives your sins, that your sins are saved. But then the work is to start. Then you're to build a life. And then you're to be a better and better and better and more faithful and more honest and more true. It doesn't mean it takes something. Everybody's going to sin and come short of the glory of God. But sometimes they look in the mirror and say, that's wrong, I quit, and God, teshuvah. Let me say, teshuvah, return to you and do what's right. There's not a soul that hasn't, any of this hasn't sinned. There's not a soul out there, somebody probably thinking about doing sin right now. Because we're people. But we have to let that Holy Spirit come and say, no, don't do that. Don't do that. God don't want you to do that. There's a price to pay for that. It's quit. I say this, and I read this, wrote this sermon out today because you know what? I look, and I see how people treat each other. I see how people treat each other. I see how people who go and profess God is just so stingy and tight they wouldn't give them the wet off the nose. They're going to pray for them, but they ain't going to do nothing for them. Oh, I'm going to pray for you. Oh, God help me. God send me to the top of that 15-foot tower. I don't have to climb these heavy steps. Until you can get that love in your heart where you want to help and do something for somebody, you're missing the point. You're missing it. I said in the Bible study the other night, and part of what we read was at our Bible study the other night. I said it this way. If you're a millionaire and you give somebody $20, you ain't give nobody nothing. You give the widow's mite. When you know the people who live in on fixed incomes are giving a tithe, and you know the people who are making a penny of money, you ain't putting a dime in, someone's missing something. You have to figure out who it is and how you apply it. Let me tell you something, people. Watch how you treat other people. Watch how much your love is really in you, and how much greed and selfishness is in you. You better remember this. Heaven is always a very small place. Hell is big. Hell is big. The road to salvation is narrow. The road to destruction is broad. Heaven is small. Hell is large. And God's going to look at you and say, now how much did you love somebody? You love as I love you. I set the example. Look in the mirror and you say, what's God done for you? How much did He love you? And any time you try to hold someone back, or you criticize someone, or you cut them down, or you push them down, or you tell them they're not worthy, or they're ugly, or they're mean, or they're fat, or something wrong with them, you have a problem. I was this morning up at 3 o'clock working on this. I had wrote it yesterday, and then I wasn't unsatisfied, I had to come back and do some more this morning, so I woke up at 3 o'clock to work on this some more. And in the process, I flipped over on my Facebook, and the lady had something written. She's a school teacher. It's a lesson we need to learn. She went up to her blackboard and she wrote, 9 times 1 is 13. And then 9 times 2 is 18, and 9 times 3 is 27, and 9 times 36. And all the way down the whole times table. And the kids got to snickering at her. It's a little lesson. And she says, what are you snickering about? And they said, you missed the first one. It's funny. And she said, there's a lesson in life for that. Everything else I did was right. None of you commented on the rest of them was right. But every one of you picked up the one thing I did wrong. That's what you point out. And the lesson in this world is going to be everybody's going to look at you. And what if you do is wrong, they're going to remind you. And they'll never tell you what you're doing is right. Exactly. You tell me what the love is. The love would have been, teacher, that's wrong. Can I help you with that? Even the teacher. The love has got to be when you do for people, and you look at the good in people, you look at the kindness in people, but you better have it in you so you can spread it. And I'm going to tell you something, if you don't love yourself, you don't love me. If you don't do something good for yourself, you cannot do good for nobody else. Eat right, exercise, take your medicine, study, get an education, make something out of yourself, improve yourself, and don't buy a boat that runs only on the side. Amen? Amen. Pete? Michael?